All right. Hello, and welcome to all of you beloved soul sisters. Thank you for joining me here today on the Heart of the Soul podcast. My name is Amana, and I am so happy that you're here. This is a space where we explore what it means to be wild women walking upon this earth. We connect through the ancient ritual of storytelling, sharing about that which is often unseen and unspoken. It is my hope that soaking in these stories may inspire you to uncover your own innate knowing and center you into a more embodied and alive version of your beautiful, unique self. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, and our moon is full in Sagittarius right now. I have Sag rising, so I think I'm feeling the energy a bit more. Maybe you are too. This episode will be airing later this month on June 25th, which is our next new moon in Cancer. I have the pleasure of having Sydni Sands with me here today. She is a birthkeeper and an earthkeeper, as well as a podcast host of the beautiful show Sacred Reclamation. She and I have been like somewhat in each other's spheres for some time now through the birth world. And I would say that earlier this year, Universe brought me a bit closer to Sydni through her podcast when she had Stella, who I know from, she's been on my show and I've actually met her in the flesh. She's this amazing woman, Freedom Birth Story. And yeah, she was on episode 53 if you want to check that one out. But I just love how our lives like weave together through the web and across the cosmos. And yeah, I'm delighted to get to know you even deeper here today, and would love to hand the mic over to you to introduce yourself more fully or in whatever way you like, and maybe tell people where in the world you are.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me. My name's Sydni. Like she said, a lot of people call me Sid, so either or. Where in the world I am, I'm in High Springs, Florida right now. I'm from Florida and I've been a little bit nomadic the past couple of years, but landed back here last winter and will be spending probably this summer here. Before we head off to somewhere else. The Appalachian Mountains has like been tugging at our hearts for several years now, so that's where we're trying to land. But yeah, I'm a podcast host at the Sacred Reclamation podcast. Sacred Reclamation is also an apothecary, so I have an online plant medicine business where I make medicine, which is really, really beautiful. I like calling myself a medicine maker because I feel like I'm making medicine with the plants and with people through the story medicine on the podcast, and just always seeking different ways to make medicine and like finding different definitions for what is medicine, through energy or emotions or movement or sound. So that's been really cool to kind of claim that title and embody it is like really such a joy. I'd love to say that Amana first came into my sphere through the grief calls that you hosted in the Free Birth Society membership. And I joined one of those, and that was probably like 2 years ago. And it was just a really sweet and tender container. And I just really enjoyed and was so grateful for your energy. And that medicine that you made and shared and created. And that was really, really sweet. And so when we did kind of, through the interwebs reconnect, I've just been looking forward to having a conversation with you. So
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'm curious. So when I was listening to your podcast, you shared some about your childhood and things, but you didn't share your own birth story from your own mother. And I'm curious if maybe you want to start there today.
So I actually don't know much about my own birth story.
Yeah.
I didn't really get into the birth world until my mother passed away, like a couple years later. And so and that just wasn't really in our family's realm of like telling those kinds of stories. So I never got the chance to ask. And I also don't know what time I was born. I have no idea where my like original birth certificate is, and no one remembers, which is like, I'm okay with it now. And I know that I can do some digging and find it. But I had like a huge, not a huge meltdown, but I was just like, no one remembers what time I was born. Or my dad's like, it was at this hospital or this one. I'm like, come on, dad.
Wow, that's so
But
interesting.
yeah, so a lot of my like astrology or like human design charts are like, I can't fully get the whole package because I have this like intuitive, and maybe it's also just a remembering that it was somewhere around like 6:30 p.m. But one day I will do my due diligence and like call the hospital or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and you are what line in the like I feel like you were a middle child, is that right? Am I
I'm a
remembering?
middle child, yeah. I was
Yeah.
born in Louisville, Kentucky. Um, and yeah, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm December 23rd is my birthday.
Yeah, my son's on the 29th.
Okay,
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah. Oh wait, 30th. The 29th is when he was 40 weeks. He actually came on the 30th. That like 29th sticks in my head. And when it was so interesting when I listened to you talking about kind of like your family history and your mom and how she grew up not knowing that she was or that she was being raised by her grandmother. Like
Mhm.
that's so interesting. I know that that happens in other families too. Actually, in my grandma India's family, she also had her older sister had a daughter that then was raised as like the youngest daughter of the family as well.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I don't know if that was more common like back then.
yeah.
Um, but I do also find that such an interesting like story of my maternal line. And I can see how it like unfolds forward. And then also there's so many holes in the story, and I wonder like how far back, that kind of mother sister wound travels.
Mhm.
Um, and and also it's something that I'm really trying to build a life to where like my future daughters, I don't have any children yet, but my daughters will, know who they belong to and where they come from and know that they're loved and wanted and um, won't be abandoned because I think there's a big abandonment wound. And I think it's like one thing to be raised by your grandmother and know that that's your grandmother. I think the big heartbreak for my mom was like um, the being lied to and like just going your whole life like thinking this is my mom, this is my sister, and then all of a sudden it's like no, which
Yeah,
is just wild, wild to me.
totally. So wild.
Yeah.
Uh Yeah, you were speaking about how similarly to me, you sort of always known you wanted to be a mom and you loved babies. And you talked about your niece and how you would like go to school and then come home and be like, she was like my baby. Like I was so excited to be with her. Will you tell me a little bit more about, yeah, how you came to or just what you were like as a kid and liking loving babies and knowing that you wanted to be a mom.
So I was a bit of a wild child as a kid. And I love that because I feel like the last few years I've really been like letting that part of myself resurface, kind of as like a wild woman. I was always like a pajama kid. Like if I could just live in my pajamas and like have crazy hair and be barefoot and like whatever, that would be me living my best life. And as far as like, I wasn't really like a girly girl. Like, I, of course, played with dolls and baby dolls and stuff, but it's not that it was like, I don't really have memories as a child of being like, I want to be a mom, but it was just like, I just loved babies. Like, and I loved being around babies. And whenever there was a baby, like, I just want to like go hang out with the baby. I started babysitting when I was 12. There was two little girls who were like under 1 and 2, but they lived across the street from me. So I think that like they're all our families were friends. So it's like, okay, your parents are across the street, so you can watch them. So that was really cool to hang out with them and just get to learn about more about taking care of babies. I'm definitely like a caregiver to my roots. I've always been like, I was that sensitive child that's like, I don't have huge memories of being told that I was like too sensitive, but I was definitely like it was known that I was the sensitive one. Like I got gifted a bike for my birthday from like our good family friends, and I like bawled my eyes out. Just like very, very easy to cry, like crying over TV shows. I remember we used to watch like Grey's Anatomy with my mom growing up, or even like The Bachelorette, and I would like cry when they chose the wrong one. Um, but yeah, my niece was born. I was a junior in high school, and that was just like so exciting to me. I was such a like helicopter sister with my sister when she was pregnant. And then that was the first birth I ever went to. I say like that's my the first birth I attended. Really
Wow.
funny. My sister was like, she thought she was going into labor, and my mom was a nurse, but my mom was kind of like, I don't know, like, okay, you take her and you guys can go see. And I was like, I got so excited, and I'm like, I have this vivid memory of going to reach for the car keys, and then I just fainted, just from like, I guess being so excited, and then I think someone else ended up taking her, and then I went later. But yeah, that was the first birth, and I remember like standing by my sister's side. I didn't see her emerge from her vagina, but I was at her side, and I was like, I have this memory of looking at photos after, and I was like zoomed in on a photo, and I was like, what is that on my face? And I was like definitely in the splash zone of the birth. I had like a little bit of blood or whatever kind of birth fluids on me. And so I'm always like telling my niece, like, I was there, I remember, like I was in the splash zone.
Mhm.
Um, and my niece and I are just like, I think we're soulmates or something. Like we were just talking the other day. She's actually here visiting us now. Um, and we were just talking the other day. She's like, "Yeah, I think we know each other from a past life." I'm like, "Maybe we were mother-daughter in a past life." She's like, "Or maybe we're best friends." But me and her have always just been like so close. And like I would have her sleep with me at night when she was a tiny baby, and yeah, like coming home from school and just like being so excited to like get back to her. I would take her to like the high school basketball games with me. Like everybody knew her. It was funny. I feel like if you look, I mean, please don't do this, but if you look really far back on my Instagram, it looks like she's my baby. Um, but yeah, we've always been super close. And once I kind of started following that stream of curiosity around like pregnancy and birth and babies, it's just like something just magnetizes me to it. It's the most fascinating and like amazing, crazy thing in the world to me. And the fact that it's so nonchalant, like everyone's not just like, what the heck is going on? And like praising women and mothers all day, every day is just bamboozles me.
Yes, I so agree. I don't, it's incomprehensible. I cannot understand why we're not, like you're saying, like, why are we not reverent of this incredible process and that women grow and birth and then like feed babies? Like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
insane.
That's amazing. I love that you got to witness your niece's like first breath and were there, and what an impactful, beautiful experience. I wonder if maybe since we're talking about birth, maybe you'd want to like dive a little deeper into birth, and then we can maybe go to the other side and death.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I kind of, I don't know, stumbled into birth work a little bit. I'm still fairly green. Um, I did a yoga teacher training back in 2020, and then after that, I did a prenatal yoga teacher training. And then in that class, I met a doula and started just getting, that was when I first started learning more about birth. And I took her childbirth education class and did like a little mentorship with her. And then I signed up for a doula training. I trained with Hayes Hawk. She's out in LA. She's a beautiful, beautiful elder, not elder, but she's been a doula for over like 20 years. Um, a beautiful Black woman. She's just like, just exudes this like, her training is called Get Rooted, and she has just like this beautiful rooted training, which now reflecting back, she was also like my first herbalism teacher because she really wove in herbalism into her class. And at that time, it wasn't really on my radar. Like I've always been into plants, but it was more house plants for me during that time. Um, but yeah, I did that doula training, and then I was just like hooked. And I did a mentorship with a local doula when I was living in St. Petersburg. And that was when I attended my second birth, and that was also a hospital birth. And um, it was an induction. I got there like shortly after she had her epidural. It was like a woman that I had never met before. I was just shadowing a doula, and it ended up in being a C-section, and I just saw like everything that I learned in the doula training about the cascade of interventions. Like I went to my like first birth as a doula, and I just like saw that whole thing firsthand, and it was like very, very strange to me. Like I remember after going to that, I was excited, but I had this weird, like, underlying thing of like, that was weird. And like, I felt confused and just like, I don't know where to go from here. I already knew that I wanted to be more of like a home birth doula, but at that time, I was very much like, I have like a history or towards people. So I was very much in this niche. Along with the doula I was mentoring over, it was like serve everyone. And like being very inclusive and like I'll work with anyone, sliding scale, like whatever. And that's when I started to learn that like that wouldn't be sustainable for me. Like I think the things that stood out the most about going to that hospital birth was one, it was I felt kind of odd that I didn't know this woman and I was like at her birth, which is such a monumental event. But also what was really big for me was the monitoring the contractions on the computer. And since she had had an epidural, she wasn't feeling them. So the mother would be like, I think I'm having a contraction. Am I? And then everyone in the room would like look at the monitor and be like, yeah, you are. And then I was just like, that was so weird. And I remember telling this story back to one of my best friends. And then she was like, have you ever heard of Freebirth Society? She was like, you should check them out. You should follow them on Instagram. They have a podcast. Like, I feel like that would be kind of more your vibe. And then I started listening to the podcast, and then I just felt like, okay, I feel like this is where I belong. Like it was answering a lot of questions for me that like I hadn't even formed the question yet, but it was like in my body, like in my bones, just that weirdness of like something's off with the what I just saw and everything that just went down. And it was lacking that reverence and the ceremony and the and I used to, and maybe this is still true, I don't know, but I used to think like, oh, I'll be the doula ceremony, but I don't know if there's really space space for that in the hospital. Yeah, so that was kind of my entrance into birth work. And then I ended up doing the Radical Birthkeeper School, and that was really awesome. I met a lot of beautiful women in there and kind of went into the Free Birth Society realm and the membership, and then went to the festival one year. And still didn't really like, I've also been like floating around in this time, been nomadic, so not really able to like sink my roots in as a birth worker. I did have the honor of attending my first birth as a birth keeper last year in December, which was so, so, so beautiful. Yeah, I'm like getting chills just thinking about it. And the healing that came like to the whole family, but also to me through having witnessed just like two hospital births and then going through this whole like process of unlearning and relearning and sorting out like, okay, what is true for me through this whole like devastation of what the state of birth is in this modern world, and then finding another way that is like the old way, you know, and then being able to like truly witness that and being that space was, I don't even have the words for it. It was, the energy of birth is like, whoa, so big and so wild and uncomfortable and beautiful and just like so expansive. And yeah, I look forward to just like continuing to live life, and I would love to attend more births. I'm definitely I don't see myself ever being like a birth keeper or a midwife or a doula who like does a birth every week. I just couldn't see how you would be able to hold on to the reverence and the sacredness of birth and the honoring of the women and the families in that way. But yeah, birth is such an interesting and like mysterious, cool phenomenon. I don't even know what the words are for it. It's
It
beyond words.
really is. I think, yeah, mysterious is like one of those words that I feel can help define or uh what's the totally lost like the word I'm looking for. But anyway, yeah, to describe birth, because it it just is like you can plan all you want, but it doesn't mean that's how your birth is going to unfold. You know, birth is
Yeah,
so mysterious, and not knowing exactly when or how or what's possible.
yeah, yeah. As I get closer to like stepping into motherhood, I'm so, so excited just for what that embodying that experience will actually be like. And I'm so grateful for everything I've been able to learn through the women that I've been in community with the past few years. And I also still have like I think it's like a healthy amount of fear of just like, whoa, like that's going to be happening through me. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, it's big. It's transformative every single time. I believe that birth is a rite of passage with every single baby, every life for however long that they're within us. Like that is a birth, and that is a rite of passage each time. We are new, and we're different each time that we conceive and hold and birth.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
I have two living children, and I've held life in my womb 6 times.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah. So I've definitely experienced both, you know, both birthing living babies and birthing babies that were no longer alive. So I mother them all, just the mothering looks different for mothering my spirit babies than it does for those here earthside.
Yeah. I That sounds like it would be such a like unique and fruitful opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate that you put it in that way. I mean, it has been, but I definitely didn't view it as that as it was unfolding. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had, like, you always wanted to be a mom, was like so excited to be a mom. And although I did know that miscarriage and early birth happened, I wasn't I wasn't expecting it to happen to me. I didn't actually know any, I didn't have any like close friends that had those experiences. All my friends that I'd known that had had babies up until that point hadn't had any losses. So when my first pregnancy ended in a 6-week early birth, I was devastated. And then my next pregnancy, I found out when I was 6 months pregnant that that baby didn't have kidneys and wouldn't live after she was born. And,
Mm.
6 months pregnant, I was, quite far along, could feel her moving inside of me. And it has definitely been a big journey. And I had to reckon with death and knowing that I was going to birth her and she wasn't going to live. And I was angry for a while at universe and angry at my own body and all these things. And yet it's also added richness to my life and the way that grief and the depths of grief, the initiations into grief and death, and my experience there, I feel has like expanded my capacity also for love and joy on the other side of that.
Yeah, I feel like it's such a hard thing to talk about, and it is almost like another thing where there's not words, or like there's not supposed to be words when it comes with grief and death, and especially I would imagine like when it's the death of a baby. Um, yeah, and I also feel like it's easier to for me to say, like, as someone who's never lost a child, that it's like what a unique and fruitful opportunity. And also, I just like when I kind of drop into my body of even just a teeny tiny fraction of what that might feel like, that's really like heavy and intense. And
Yeah, and at the same time I would go through it again. I wouldn't, it's not something I would necessarily choose for myself, but I wouldn't not, choose it either at the same time.
yeah.
When you were talking about your mom and your mom's death and how that initiation into grief and death for you has transformed you, and you were in one of your podcasts, you were sort of storytelling about the experience, and that from what I remember, like you wouldn't necessarily change it either, that you've in a way made peace with what's happened. Not that you don't still yearn for her and connect
Mhm.
with her, but yeah, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about your mom and the story of her death.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mom, her name is Heather. Um, She was a nurse at the children's hospital. She was on like the flight team, so the helicopter that comes in for emergencies or transporting patients between hospitals. And so she was very much like she had this sort of like badass energy. um, she was definitely like the glue to our family, which like I think all mothers are. And I also think that sometimes we don't notice that until they're not there. But she passed away like 6.5 years ago. She was 49 years old. I'm still like working on a the verbiage or the language that I feel comfortable using. She, I think saying that she killed herself is a frank way to put it. Yeah, she ended her life in her physical body. She had a lot of suffering, obviously, for someone to do that. And it certainly wasn't obvious to me at the time. I kind of like, I always knew that my mom had mental health struggles, like, but we didn't really talk about it as a family. And she was very like high functioning, um, and also very like guarded in general, but also around like, I think she only really let a few people in on seeing her fully is what I see now in hindsight. And I think I was too young and busy being young. And also, yeah, I don't know if she would have shared that with me like as her child. But when she died, that was like, yeah, totally out of the blue. I was not expecting that at all. Even like when she died, and then later finding out that it never even crossed my mind that she would have killed herself. I think I just thought, like, I don't know what I thought, but I guess I just thought, like, oh, I guess she just randomly died in her sleep. Like, I don't know. And
And
so then, I'm
you were the
sorry, go
one
ahead.
with her, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't show up for work one day. And then someone from her work just called me and said, "Hey, like your mom didn't show up," which is weird. I think someone from her work went to check on her, and like no one answered the door. And so they were like, "Can you go check on her?" And so I went over to check on her. And yeah, um, she was dead. And something that breaks my heart a little bit, but I think I've like come to peace with it now, is that she had died on Monday night and I found her on Wednesday morning. So
Mhm.
it does break my heart a little bit to know that she was just kind of sitting there and no one knew that she was gone. And I also just like, your brain creates so many stories, and it's like she definitely had this story that no one loved her, no one cared about her. So, and I don't know if any of that matters once you do leave your physical body. I hope that you are kind of released from those stories, but yeah, definitely. Even though a day passed and um, I didn't know that she was gone, definitely still love her and care for her. It's so much so that like it would never even cross my mind that she would be gone.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so that was like such a big, intense, like that was almost a death for me in a way. Like I just didn't see that coming at all. It completely blindsided me. And I was just like, I was 22 years old. I was like young. I was a bartender. I was like party girl, like loved going to music festivals, just like dancing, having fun, just like that was what my life was. And but also there was a lot of like I hated my job, and like there was a lot of things in my life that I was just in that like, oh, whatever, I hate my job, like I'll just go out and party. And there was not a real depth. I would say like a little bit of depth just from like doing psychedelics and like what comes from that. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but
that
in
just
your
put like a
20s,
full
yeah, in your 20s, you're like, you feel invincible, like not
oh
many people
yeah.
are talking about death or grief when we're in our 20s.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We had a little bit of like our my little friend group. We had a friend when in 2015 who took his life. So we had like death and grief, kind of like the energy of it, but the way we coped with it was just like darkness and sarcasm and like whatever, have a beer, like. And so this with going through this with my mom was really pulled me out of all of that. I just like never went back to work.
Mm.
Um, I pretty much just like stayed in bed for like 6 months, watching TV, just like wasting away, just like not sure how to move forward at all or how to like process anything that I like saw and felt. Um, and then just, I think slowly over time, like as things do shift over time, things started shifting and just like it was becoming a little bit more clear to me that like I don't know, I'm definitely I like to be have a say in where my life is going and how my life is happening. So I was like moved out of my apartment and then I moved back in with my dad and his wife and that was just like super weird and I was just like just had this like itchiness of my skin of like I gotta get out of here. And I was blessed to receive money from my mom once she passed away. And once I received that money, I went to Thailand for a few months. And that was very, very healing just to like get away and volunteered doing like outdoor work. So it was like using my body and being outside and being in a beautiful new country with beautiful, loving people and very like spiritual energy there. And that was on also a time when I was getting more into yoga. And so yoga was really, really healing for me. I think, again, it was like getting into my body and kind of like moving some of that emotion and energy. But that just like threw me on my healing journey, I would say, just because like what else? I wasn't willing to just like rot away and, waste my life. So um, I was kind of forced on it, but I'm so grateful. And like 6.5 years later to it does feel like such a gift to be able to like tell this story and to also like make medicine out of it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'll just pause if
Yeah, it's making me think about just the living in the now, like you spoke about, and I speak about sometimes too, that tomorrow is guaranteed to no one. And so when we have a big death like that, it can really, if we let it, it can impact our ability to live more presently or vibrantly or feel more alive just in our daily lives, even in a way that I feel like it's a little less accessible to people who have yet to experience a big death in their life. Of course, death, comes at some point for everyone. They're going to experience a death, but when we experience it younger, for me, like my first impactful death was when I was 26 and my first love, or I was 25 and my first love was 26, Bjorn, and he died and I was present. And so similar to you in my 20s, it was like an awakening for me in a way. And he really wanted to live and he had cancer, and just knowing that it just brought in such a into focus how precious this life is and each day is, and that we can choose how we interact with our lives.
yeah, I totally agree. And that is like how I live my life now. I've made so many changes the past 6.5 years, but also the past probably 3 years to just like reorient my life into a way that works for me, and aligns with like that belief of like every day is precious and that life is sacred. And I've been finding it really, really cool and like it's been really moving. What has like arisen for me this year is like I'm like tearing up thinking about it. It's just like I've really fallen in love with like being alive, which I feel like for my family and like my lineage is such a big like turning point and such a like cutting off that cycle of like, of course there's sadness, but just like this. this not really being interested in being alive or participating in life, or like feeling trapped in what life is. And I think it's easy. I know it's easy to fall into that, like getting bogged down by life, and life is so hard, and all these bad things happen, and something good happens and then something bad happens. Like that's that was how I was living before. And just like over the years of shifting my perspective and like my internal landscape into seeing that like I am a co-creator, a big co-creator in life and what comes and goes. And I just like am able to find gifts from every experience. Like, and even like the quote unquote bad stuff is like, there's so much goodness that comes from it. And it feels so weird to say that like my mom dying is like both the worst and best thing that ever happened for me. And like I actually see it like as a gift to our lineage, to future generations, because it was just like a very hard line, almost like a line in the sand of like something has to change. And like I don't think she was conscious of it, of like I have to do this like for future generations, but that's the impact that it made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Death transforms us as well. Like birth transforms us.
Yeah, if we let it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And you were talking about the quote, like suffering is optional. Do you,
Yeah.
yeah, do you want to say more about that, maybe?
What is the quote? Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Uh-huh.
I'm still kind of in a toss up on it. That was like that was just like a common quote in our household as
Okay.
kids. And like I used to play softball, and I remember like having this shirt that said that. And I think it was also like written and hung on the wall, like in the house. Um, and I do think that pain is inevitable. And I think I also believe that suffering is inevitable. Like I don't think that it's optional. Like I think in some circumstances it can be. Like I do think we can, choose to just like lay down and suffer and be like, woe is me. But I
Mm-hmm.
also think that there are like real things in life, like your mom killing yourself or losing a baby when you're just like so excited to be having a baby. Um, like that brings suffering. And I think that suffering is like, I think there's purpose to it. I think it is almost like I don't know, I've been thinking a lot lately about like soul contracts. Have you heard of that? Just like the idea that we signed up for this life, and like our soul like knew all the things we were going to go through, and we chose to come. Um and that's like so crazy to think about if that is real. And it's also another one of those sort of like mystery things of like maybe it is, maybe it's not. Nobody will ever know, I don't think. But I think that the suffering is almost like it like brings you back on your path a little bit. Like we kind of have these distractions in life, and we kind of wander off and like go look at other things, and then like, and not only suffering, I think a lot of things can bring you back. But yeah, it does seem like a little bit of a like it'll bring you to where you're meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine being just interesting that that was like a, thing in your household, in your awareness that like suffering is optional. Like that was the message you were given. But like you're speaking to now that you're not entirely sure that resonates or feels true to you now. And I would say for myself, I don't think that suffering is optional. I think it's purposeful, like you're saying, like it does change us and can like help nudge us or push us and can impact us in a positive way, even though it's an uncomfortable experience.
Hmm. Yeah, just when you were talking now, I was also just thinking like that's so interesting that that was such a big thing in our house when like my mom was suffering so much.
Oh, yeah.
And so that just like pulls on the thread of like, I wonder if something that I experience is like this, little voice that's like saying that there's something wrong with you or you're not good enough or you're not right. And so I don't know, just when you were speaking, it's like I wonder if, to be like experiencing something and then to be telling yourself like this is optional, you're doing it to yourself, like there's something wrong with you. Like that is I don't know, it's sad and also it's very human, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. You've spoken to like having a relationship with your mom in spirit, and I'm curious if you are able to like describe more to people what that sounds like, looks like, feels like, because I think some people have different beliefs around it, but I would love to hear from your experience what that feels like to you to have a relationship with your mom that is no longer alive.
I think sometimes it can be like really subtle, and then sometimes it can be like really obvious to me. I don't know if it'd be obvious to other people, but sometimes it can literally just feel or be like me thinking something and then like there being a response and just like allowing and trusting that to be like, or just something about it is like, oh, okay, mom, or like it just feels like she's chiming in. And then sometimes it's like a butterfly, or I watched this video and it was these indigenous people in Hawaii and they were speaking about how their people are really big on like animals and getting messages through animals. And he said something about like if you're driving and a bird flies and it's flying in the direction that you're going, that is like a good omen from your ancestors of like you're headed in the right direction, like keep going. And then like if it's flying past you the opposite way, that's like a message of like, hey, what are you doing? And so sometimes it's just like getting in the car and driving down a road, and then like a little bird is like flittering past. I'm like, oh, okay, like they're here, she supports me, and also like, my grandmothers and all other ancestors that have passed. And then a funny one is like my mom had put some music on my phone accidentally once, and it's like the only music on my iTunes. And so every now and then when I get in the car, I don't know what happens, but like something happens and it connects to that. And the song is Fireworks by Katy Perry. And it used to be so annoying before I like had a moment where I was just like having a moment and then I was like I would just like turn it off as quick as I can, like this song is so annoying. And then I had a moment where I let the song play and it just felt like such a clear message from my mom. Um and the lyrics of that song, they are so like encouraging and uplifting. So sometimes it's like that. And I think it's more about like being open to it and allowing and like instead of like feeling like something comes through and then being like, no, you're just making that up, like just being open and allowing it. And then something that you had shared with me that I really loved in the grief circle that you held was I was talking about how a lot of the memories that I have are like bad memories, and sometimes I can't call up good memories. And you just said, like, have you ever asked or have you ever just sat down and said, like, show me a good memory? And so I've used that in times of just like, just sitting down and directly like asking or, yeah, show me a good memory, or like just sitting down and like talking to my mom, hey, mom, what do you think about this? And just like allowing that almost like, I don't know if it's like opening up to the energy that's like always there.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that's what it's like.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I believe that we all have the ability to communicate with our ancestors and loved ones in spirit, but not everyone does. But I've definitely had similar experiences to you with, yeah, songs and music or like a name coming up, or like when I was like my baby Hartley, my one without kidneys, that she died. And for her, like the color green was, I super connected to her. And even just like I was in a public bathroom once and this green crayon rolled across the floor. And I was just like, oh, that's you. Like it made me cry. I think I even like took a picture of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like these little things that can, if we're open to receiving them and looking for them, like I feel like they're trying to communicate with us. They want to continue a relationship with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy just like trusting information that comes to me. Like if I see three cardinals flying around and I'm like, I have the thought of like, oh, that's my mom and my nan and my poppy. I'm just like, that is what it is. Like,
Totally. The other day, we live up on a mountain, and so we see like animals and deer quite often. But the other day, we were driving home up the dirt road, and there were like three deer. And they like stopped. We stopped and they stopped, and like they didn't like run away right away or anything. And my daughter, who's 5 in the backseat, she was like, I think that that's Hartley and Grandma Elsie. And like, I was like, oh, yeah, it probably is. And we were like, hi, hi to them. And yes, yeah.
yeah, it's so sweet. I feel like also just kids are like super tuned in. So whenever kids say something like that, I'm like, that's true.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, my daughter even, she told me that she like tried to come in 3 times, like that she had been in
Wow.
belly before and, that it just wasn't the right body. And it's like, yeah, okay. Like, I feel that. I trust you.
Wow, that's really cool. Did you say she's 5?
She's 5. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I would love to hear more about you starting a podcast and about its title, Sacred Reclamation, and what that means to you and where you're going with it. And I can't wait to be on it at some point. And yeah, tell me more about your inspiration to start your podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. I would say the inspiration to start the podcast like came a while ago. I was like last year I had a moment where I was looking back on my journals and it was when I was in Thailand and I think that was like 2019 and that was the first time that I wrote down that I wanted to have a podcast. And then like for whatever millions of reasons I made up not to do it, I didn't do it. And I had spent some time reflecting on like turning 29 and like, okay, how do I want to wrap up my 20s? Like, how can I step into my 30s just like feeling complete and like proud of like how I spent my 20s? And so the podcast like just has continuously come up over the years. And I went on my friend's podcast. It's called Moon Baby Magic. She had me on as a guest, and I really enjoyed being on there. It was a lot of fun, really like lit me up and got me inspired. And also just seeing someone I know do it was like, oh, okay, like I could do that. And so I decided to go for it. I already had the name Sacred Reclamation just from that kind of landed on like within me when I was doing the Radical Birthkeeper school. And I was really just like searching for a name that felt right. And I'm a big, like, I love words, I love writing and poetry. And so I also wanted it to be something that could like encompass like my whole life, like as I continue to unfold and like what is really if you can say what your life is going to be about in a few words, like what would encompass that? And so sacred reclamation really came to me because it does hold this energy of like we're taking back something that was taken away from us, and that is like the holiness of life, like the sacredness of life, and this connection to source or God or the universe, or just like really remembering. It's a lot about like remembering who we are, and also just a reminder for me that life is sacred, and birth is so sacred, and death is sacred. And I really think that in our modern society or our culture, like we've moved so far away from that. And I think that that has a huge ripple effect throughout the world, and a lot of the problems we see throughout the world. Um, and so, yeah, the podcast was born. I loved the idea of like storytelling. I think that like learning through story is so important and so valid. And I just think it's also important, like the medicine of the healing that comes from like sharing when we share our stories, and then the healing that comes when someone else hears our story and also like sees a piece of themselves in it. And it just like makes you feel seen and reminds you that you're not alone in whatever you are experiencing or feeling. And even if it's not exactly like my story or whoever is sharing their story, like, yeah, knowing that like there's nothing wrong with you and you're not alone, and this is just like a normal part of the human experience. I think that is really important and can be really potent for people. And yeah, I'm definitely someone who is on the like listening side a lot in life. And it's been really cool to be able to like use my voice and speak, and also like create something and put it out into the world. That's been very, very cool. Everything I'm doing at Sacred Reclamation, to like the podcast or the plant medicine, and like making the tinctures and the labels, and then like sending them out to people, and knowing that people are going to like ingest them and take them into their bodies and spirits, and in the name of like healing. Is really, really cool.
Yeah. What plant or like tincture or whatnot do you feel most like in communion with right now, the ones that you create?
Right now it's reishi.
Mm.
Reishi mushroom has been just like uh yeah, such a good friend to me. It has a really like wise energy, and I find that it's sort of like fills some little hole of like the lack of living ancestors I have. And like, so there's something about like having reishi in my home, or like if I'm out camping and like camping near reishi, or having this tincture right here, and then like taking this tincture and just like really being surrounded by the wisdom of this like really ancient fungi. It feels really like grounding, and I guess like safe, and almost like, I don't know, I just feel this like container of like almost like this shield of like grandmother energy, like watching over me and my family.
Hmm.
Really,
Sweet.
really love reishi.
Yeah, I love that you create plant medicines. I definitely grew up in a family that it was, pharmaceuticals were medicine.
Yeah.
It's only been for me, maybe not even until I was in my 30s. I'm 42 now, that I really began and I used to be a nurse, a practicing registered nurse. So
Oh,
yeah, it took me some time to like unravel and come away from that conditioning and into learning about plant medicines myself and creating them. And there's something so special, especially when you're the one creating the medicine that then you are using. It's also beautiful, like you said, to like know that you're sending them off to other people and that they're going to, feel the energy and medicine of the plants as well. But I just want to share something about like it's also been another layer for me is like the names of some plants. Like St. John's wort is that like yellow, it's this yellow plant, but then if you like create an herbal oil out of it, it's like a red blood color.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's so fun that like you crush one of the flowers in your fingers, that it like stains your fingers this kind of like dark color that you wouldn't expect because the flowers are yellow. And one of my herbal teachers, Judith Berger, she was like, well, I call it St. John's wort, like she just like, no, like I feel like it's this feminine name. Like I'm not going to call it a man's name. It's St. John's wort. And it's like a flower that is also like really good for your bleeding time and for our wombs. And so I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't like St. John's wort. Like that name never really felt that great to me, but the permission to like shift the name has been such a beautiful part of my connection with plants recently.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend Anna, she lives up in North Carolina, and her family, they call poison ivy sister ivy. And so I've been like slowly kind of like retraining because it is just such a like, if you would imagine like being approached and being like poison amana, like everyone always called you that. And everyone was always like so scared of you and like didn't want you around, and they saw you and they were like, ah. And then like to kind of alchemize that and then instead be called Sister Ivy or Sister Amana and like be seen with love and reverence. And for me, when I see the presence of Sister Ivy, it's like I've learned that she's like very big on boundaries, which it's to me, it's like she'll grow in places that have been like disrespected or misused. And so now she's like, okay, I'm here now, and it's time for you to stop. And so I like to see it as an invitation to just be like, oh, okay, like I'll just leave this space be, or let me be more gentle here, or and I think that that is such an important role that she plays on the planet.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's just so many possibilities of the way that we can observe or connect with a plant, like you're saying. And there can be that instinct to just like, be afraid of it or label it as bad. But like you're saying, it's not, she's not Sister Ivy. Ivy's not bad. She has purpose.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I would love to. I think it's something I'm slowly doing, but I would love to also approach people in that way. Um, my partner Shane, he's really, really good at that. He's just like the other day I was talking to my niece and she was asking about something and I was like, you need to ask Shane about that. I'm like, he's the master of unconditional compassion and love. Um, and just like, that same thought form of like bad people, quote unquote bad people, like it is all about perspective and the stories that are told about them or the stories that they tell. And like everyone has a story. And I think a lot of times, um, hate or bad energy. I don't know. I hate to use the word bad, but that kind of energy usually comes from a lack of understanding. Um, and it's a lot easier for me to see that with the plants. And I would love to remember that more when I'm interacting with people.
yeah. As you approach like this next decade of life, your 30s, is there something you're feeling like more sure about than ever before? Like maybe something that you were kind of like, well, maybe, or I don't know, or something like that in the past that now you're just feeling more clear or certain about now at this time in your life?
Um, I would say that I'm more sure. It's hard to say like more sure because I feel like once you say like, oh, I'm sure about this, like someone out there is gonna be like, oh, really? But I just have this, I'm allowing the energy of trust to come in more and just allowing myself to actually be who I am more and like healing that notion of like you're not enough or you're wrong and being like, no. I'm exactly who I am for a reason, and it's perfect and it's amazing. And actually, like the insight that really dropped in for me during my last bleed was like just sitting more in that energy of trust and like trusting that the things that I desire or the vision that I have for my life, like it is on its way to me. And like I don't have to, like, there's no point in stressing about it and like being like, oh, what do I have to do I got to do this, this, and this. And like, oh, if I don't do this, like I fucked everything up. Like, there's just been this real energy of trusting and just focusing more on like, how can I be more in the present moment now and like see the beauty and the gifts that are around me now and just like know that that's what I'm meant to be having. I think like being back in Florida has kind of thrown me through a loop a little bit. And like, I think I've had a little bit of resistance, especially being here in the summer. Um, I had said a couple years ago, like, this is my last summer in Florida. And and then I was gone for a couple of summers and I was like, I did it. And then now I'm back. And but just recently having that drop in of like, you're here for a reason. Like this is this is part of your story. And I actually enjoy like looking ahead in life. Like for some reason I'm really excited about like being in my 40s because I'm like, oh, it's going to be so good. Like I just know it's going to be so good and I'm so excited to see like what I would have created and the life I would have created and like how many kids I have and just like had this dream of having like a farm and having growing food for our family and then also growing medicinal herbs and tending to the land and giving back to the soil and I'm just really excited for all of that and every now and then I can tip into like control freak like how do I make it happen and then I have these little reminders that come in times when I'm like connected and attuned to it, where it's like, just take a deep breath. Like it's okay. Like what is beautiful around you now, and like just be with that. Like it's all gonna happen. Motherhood, your business, the farm, like marriage. It's all going to happen. So I think
Mm.
that has been like a big shift for me. Like it's felt pretty scary. Like trust has felt pretty scary in the past. And now it almost feels like the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're talking about like being excited about growing older. I have felt that way too, but so many people, and I mean, it's understandable in our culture that like is so focused on beauty and youth and being young and like not getting the wrinkles and like things like that. But I too was like, it's a privilege to grow older. And like in my 40s, this is another like era and different experience. And I do love it. And I'm grateful to be alive, like we're speaking about. I'm curious what do you think has impacted your ability to look forward to growing older in a time when most of the world around you is telling you that that's like bad.
Um, I think it has to do with like falling in love with being alive. And it also is like, which is funny thinking back to like being a kid and loving babies, but I just have this vision of like meeting my great grandchildren. And like I know I can't control that and but I have this like prayer to just like be an old like I want to be present and like be the old matriarch woman. And even if I'm just like super quiet, like I spent a lot of time with my poppy when I was a little girl and he was very quiet. And yeah, even if it's just like being in the quietness and like having that grandmother energy, but there's just something about and I just have this vision of like sitting on the porch and like it's a beautiful, beautiful view out into like the land and like I have my little family and just like being the woman that like other women in the community come to. Um, really, I don't know, gets me going. I was doing I started strength training this year, and I've been doing these her name is Nourish Move Love on YouTube, and I was doing a workout yesterday, and it was so hard, and I was like, I'm kind of adverse to hard physical things. But she said something in the workout, and she was like, your 70-year-old self is like going to thank you for this. Like the things that you do now in this body as like in your 20s and 30s and 40s to like, help with muscle mass and bone density and just like the way that your body works when you're older, like you're setting your future self up for success. I don't know, there's just something really cool. Like I just feel connected to my 90-year-old self that's just going to be like I don't know. I just feel her.
Yeah, I love that. I love your description and how you're, yeah, envisioning yourself at this time. I would say I sort of felt a similar connection when like I first heard about like Baba Yaga, like this old woman in the woods with like herbs hanging and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that's what I'm gonna be when I grow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not in a rush to get there, but yeah, there's just something about that vision that feels so like real to me.
Yes. So, speaking of something that is a little bit harder to define, I am curious if you can tell me what soul means to you or how you define it or describe it.
Soul. This is something I've been thinking about, and maybe it was listening to your podcast that like initially awoke in the question like earlier this year. Um, but I think that our soul is like this energy that just like lives on, and it's like it is so hard to put into words because it's kind of like this. And I don't know when our soul comes in. Like I kind of have this theory of like when we're in the womb that we can still kind of go in and out. And then once we're born, we're like in this body until we're not anymore. But I just think the soul is this, yeah, I guess it is this just this energy. I guess as a visual, you could just see it as like a ball of energy. And like when we take our first breath, like it's in our body. And then when we take our last breath, it's back out of the body and like, into the ether or out in the universe. And it's just like back into that like web of consciousness. Um, and it is really interesting to think about like, energy is not created nor destroyed. And so it's like, are we just eternal forever? And like, does that bother us when we're not in the human body, or is it just like the human consciousness that like is crazy to even try to think about outside of time and space? Um, yeah, and I don't think the soul really has a personality or yeah, I think it's just kind of like pure energy.
So I'm like had so many little things bubble up as you're speaking, and I've actually pondered such similar things. Though, like, no matter is created or destroyed, then like, what does that mean? And so, and but then also like when you're communicating with your mom, like, is that with her soul, or what would you just? How would you like? What are you communicating with then, if not her soul? Because I guess I've
I
always sort of thought that I'm communicating with souls in a way.
I think it is her soul, but it is interesting to think about it in that way because I was like, I don't think souls have a personality. But it's like I obviously am like that is my mom, but I also think it's so cool that when you think about like past lives, and I feel like I just became open to that like maybe 6 or 7 months ago. Because you can take on all these different personalities in different lives, and you might even be a man in another life. And um, yeah, I think it is communicating with the soul. And I also I think there's a side of communicating like soul to soul that's really beautiful because it is without all the human junk um that comes along with being human. And so it is just like this love. I think souls are like if the energy is anything, it's the energy of love.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very hard to put into words.
totally. But that's why I love asking people because no one says the same exact thing, right? Like there's some similar
Yeah,
commonalities often that people speak when they speak to the soul, but it's never exactly the same.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been curious this year about like, and I've just been curious like in my mind. I haven't really embodied this, but really curious of people who speak on like accessing kind of your soul energy or your essence, just that pure energy of love consciousness, like through meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And just have listened to some people speak on like their experience with that. And just like, I find that very, very fascinating.
Yeah. And like you kind of spoke to the feeling the soul connection to your niece. When my husband and I met, like there was a definite like soul past life. I didn't grow up believing in past lives. I didn't grow up in a religious or spiritual home, but I was like, whoa, like it was so clear that we had lived lifetimes together, that we were reconnecting in that moment. We were not meeting for the first time. And that was just so like, it just opened something in me in a whole new way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
definitely those people that you meet and it just feels like you know each other. And I
Hmm.
would say on some level, even with you, just like people when you meet them and it's just so easy to converse with and you have like so many similar threads in life and um it's very cool to just like wonder about like that little connection.
Yeah. Yes, the connection. And I love that you brought up like babies in our womb because I was just last night I was just thinking about how incredible it is that women literally like within their bodies we not only hold another body in like my belief but we also hold another soul. Like it's the only time where there's more than one soul inside of one body and it's only women that have that experience.
Right? And it like thinking of the womb like really as a portal because and no one knows when really, the soul comes into the body. It's like the ultimate mystery. So to just, I find it pretty fun to think about like if these little souls are kind of like popping in and out throughout pregnancy and they like come into your body and they're kind of like hanging out and then they like go back out into the universe and they're like, okay, like here I go. Like I find it, yeah, it's all just like what a magical like life itself is just so magical and mystical and like
Yeah.
who thought this up? Who created all of this?
Yes, I mean, I could just sit all day, every day, like in awe of what is, and the
Yeah.
like you're saying, the magic and the mystery. And I love that there's these aspects that are not like that can't always be exactly like white paper researched or proven or discovered. No one can tell us exactly what happens when we die.
Yeah. And that's like part of the thrill.
Yeah,
Do I
definitely.
have time? Yeah, I have a question for you. Do we have time?
Yeah, and then I was gonna ask you, yes, you can ask
I
them.
just have a quick question of like what your thoughts or what your experiences with spirit babies like before conceiving.
Yeah, so for me, it was a concept that I feel like I felt my spirit babies even before I understood, like had a name for them. And I find this with like several threads. Like I didn't hear the word medium until I was in my 30s, yet I was experiencing mediumship and experiencing those things, but also spirit babies. Like I I just knew that I was going to have babies someday and I could feel their presence in some way, shape, or form in my life. I remember in more prominently like in my 20s, and then in my early 30s, I like after I had this breakup, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like spirit babies, like I had thought I was going to have babies with that man, and then it became clear that wasn't going to happen. But I could feel the presence of my spirit babies, and I actually asked them to like help me find my husband, and they totally did. Like it was this little butterfly that flew in front of my face and then over to my husband that led me to him. Well, I made eyes at him and then he came and talked to me after the butterfly flew over to him. But I just started talking about spirit babies and then lost track of your initial question. I know it was about spirit babies, but can you ask it again?
Yeah, it was just like what your experience with spirit babies before conception was. So you're
Yeah.
still on the thread.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I had this inner dialogue with them as I got closer to the time when I was going to conceive them, and asked them for messages and asked them like, help me find like your dad. And they totally did. And I don't know, I, I also found that book, the like Spirit Babies book, that green, I don't know if you ever read it. And it has like some chants and things in it. And I did some of that, but then also found that for myself, the chants didn't really resonate with me. It was more like I took time to sit in ceremony and like be with them and like just feel their energies and talk to them. And also, with my connecting it to my womb and knowing that we as women, like we're born with all the eggs, the start of what could become our babies someday are with us from when we're inside our mother, which is so wild, which means that in a sense, we were inside our grandmother when our grandmothers held our mothers in their womb. That the little egg part that then met a sperm later and became us was inside our grandmothers. And so connecting with the maternal lineage and the like physical form that is inside of me, and then also the spirit and the soul of those babies.
Yeah, I love that story of like the butterfly flying over to your husband.
Yes, it was truly magical. I had created this whole like altar, and I had put this butterfly pendant on it that was from, it was my grandmother's, but I had sort of forgotten that I had placed it on the altar when I actually was at the place where then this butterfly came in from my face and led me to him. And it was just so full circle and perfect.
Yeah, I love when we kind of like set an intention and then almost like forget about it. And then like, you know, whatever the energy field like is still holding that intention, and it like, you know, comes into real life maybe way later, and then it can almost be like surprising, and then it's like, oh yeah, I did put that out there. I forgot
Uh-huh.
about that.
Yes, the universe is listening and, responding for sure.
Yeah.
hmm So I do feel like we're coming to a close, but I would love for you to share with people where they can find you, where they can buy your herbal creations, and where they can connect with you and listen to your podcast. And of course, I'll put links below, but yeah.
Yeah. So my website is sacred-reclamation.com. I think if you just do sacredreclamation.com, that'll get you there too. I'm on Instagram at sid.sands or at sacred.reclamation. And yeah, that's like, those are the main places where you can find me and connect with me. The herbal medicine is like my big focus right now, and also the podcast, which is the Sacred Reclamation podcast. And you can find that on like, I think all the streaming platforms, also on YouTube if you want to like watch the video. And I do also do one-on-one work. I do holistic health consultations and grief counseling, which is new for me, but you really feel like the soul or heart calling towards doing that. And yeah, I think it's another sweet way to kind of um, be of service based off of like what I've walked through, and walking with others as they walk through their health or grief or just like life transformation journeys. So if anyone wants support in that way. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, beautiful. Good. I'm grateful to know about the one-to-one work you do with people as well. And I do think that is so, yeah, for me, when I first went through grief, having someone who had walked a similar path before me and being able to talk with them and have them, bear witness and support me was really so important and impactful. Like I had beautiful friends and family and, even other people, wise people in my life, but because they hadn't gone through a similar experience, the impact that I felt from receiving from them wasn't the same as, like you're saying, someone from yourself who's experienced grief yourself, but then that allows you to connect with other people in that way and be a support and a guide to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I would have had that in the time that I was going through it, because there's just something about it where it just feels more like grounded or like more real,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also like serves as evidence of like, okay, like there's like I can, there's another side of this, like when you're really in it, it's like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. When you're really in it, especially the first time, I mean, for me, it felt like, am I ever gonna be happy again? Like, am I ever gonna be normal or like on the other side of that? It felt like I was just gonna be in this dark hole forever. And having someone that could say, like, I've been in the depths in that dark night of the soul. And yes, it was hard and it sucks, but I am on the other side of it now was super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say something that I've learned too the past handful of years is like trusting that when I do go into the depths, like I think I've been in and out so many times that now it's like I don't have to be so scared when the darkness does come, because I do think the darkness, I think that's part of life, we go into the depths, and then I think it's very empowering to know that like I'm always coming back out.
Totally. Yeah, I felt the same way that like the next time it came, I didn't feel as like I was resisting it as much because I do believe that it's important to go to the depths and like feel it, because otherwise it doesn't go away. It just affects your life in other ways until you orient to it, face it, and feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I just so love this time and know we could just like talk on and on and on.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk again when we record for your show. And I'm just so grateful for you to share these stories and these soul connections. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, can't wait to have you on, and I feel like I could talk to you forever.
Thank you so much for listening, my dearest beloveds. If you are feeling a resonance with me, I would absolutely love to work with you one-on-one or in one of my group circles that are exclusively for women. I have offerings for preparing for birth, for guidance in mothering. I do birth trauma debriefs for you to integrate and heal challenging birth experiences. I have intuitive offerings such as mediumship readings and energy healing. I offer guidance in grief, death, and celebrant services. And if meeting one-to-one feels like too much, please join my full moon birth circle or my new moon death grief circle. If you haven't already, I would love for you to take a moment to just rate, review, or share the show with somebody that you know. If you want to share your story on the Heart of the Soul, or have a desired topic suggestion, please reach out to me through email. And as always, remember that we are co-creators of the world that we want to live in for ourselves and for the generations to come. Until next time, be brave, be bold, be love, be you.